Revealed. The terrifying rules I discovered in my haunted uncle's sinister British Columbia cabin. Sarah parked her car and stared into the suffocating darkness of the dense wilderness. The tall trees loomed over her like ancient sentinels, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. An unsettling chill ran down her spine. The cabin, inherited from an uncle she barely knew, was supposed to be a tranquil escape. But the oppressive silence wrapped around her like a shroud, beating against her chest. As she stepped inside, the musty air hit her a suffocating weight, filled with secrets best left buried. Every creak of the old wooden floor echoed in the stillness, amplifying the anxiety curling in her stomach. The decor was stuck in another time. Faded photographs lined the walls, seemingly watching her with accusing eyes. Felt like stepping into a grave. Her heart raced as her gaze caught strange symbols etching the wood, a mix of desperation and warning. A voice echoed in her head, her uncle's last words. "Obey the rules or you will never leave." Panic surged as she stepped back, her breath heavy in the stagnant air as night draped itself around the cabin. The darkness thickened, swallowing her whole. The flickering candlelight cast bizarre shadows that moved unnaturally, erasing the line between reality and nightmare. A chill crept up her spine. Was someone watching her? The very walls felt alive, vibrating with an unseen energy. She wrestled against the gathering dread, her hands trembling as she traced the unsettling symbols with a shaking finger. Each rule seemed like a riddle entwined with unspoken curses from generations past. She needed answers, needed to escape the tightening coils of fear that squeezed her throat. Venturing into town, she hoped to find someone who could help. But the townsfolk were silent, their eyes glinting with an eerie recognition. Whispers followed her, drowning her in a sea of secrets. The more she probed, the more they recoiled, as if she carried a dark omen. She returned to the cabin, dread surging in her veins. The silence felt heavier upon her return, the air thick as molasses. Suddenly, her cell phone buzzed to life and flickered dimly, losing signal in the most critical moment of need like a cruel joke. She could feel it, the weight of something sinister encroaching upon her thoughts, feeding off her fear. The coldness gripped her in a vice, an unsettling knowing that she wasn't alone. With every breath, another layer of her sanity peeled away, and yet she could not look away from the writhing darkness. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night wore on. Shadows danced menacingly, whispering hidden truths. Her uncle's dark legacy loomed ever larger in her mind, tightening its grip on her. The hidden rules pulsed with energy, demanding her acknowledgement, forcing her to confront the horror that had haunted her family for generations. She could feel time slipping away, the air thick with betrayal and despair. She was trapped, never meant to leave, with dawn rapidly approaching. Sarah felt the chilling realization wash over her. The very fabric of her existence was woven into the malevolence surrounding her. She stood in that haunted cabin, heart racing, knowing every rule she learned whispered a deeper secret. And as the wind howled outside, a dread-filled silence loomed over her. She had to decide. Would she break the cycle of blood and horror, or succumb to the darkness threatening to engulf her whole? The shadows stirred, and she was left trembling, sensing the dread twist tighter, knowing her soul teetered on the edge of oblivion. The morning light filtered weakly through the dusty windows, casting long shadows that seemed to clutch at the corners of the cabin. Sarah blinked against the pale rays, her heart still racing as the remnants of her restless night clawed at her sanity. A part of her wished to believe it had all been a bad dream, but the oppressive air clung to her like a second skin. Refusing to let go, she needed to confront her surroundings, to dissect the rules that bound her to this cursed place. With shaky hands, she grabbed a small notebook she discarded on the dusty floor. She flipped through the pages, past her frantic scribbles about the townsfolk and their hollow eyes, stopping at the list of rules etched in her mind like a branded mark. The first rule warned against leaving the cabin after dark. Was the night more dangerous than the day? Shivers tightened around her, a physical reminder of the shadows lurking just beyond the walls. She steeled herself. If she was to uncover the truth, she had to embrace whatever darkness this cabin harbored. Armed with a flashlight, she picked her way through the cluttered rooms, her breath echoing in the stillness. The silence was deafening, marked only by the faint crackle of the wood settling. She moved methodically, approaching the back door that led out to the forest, a suffocating wall of trees waiting like a gaping maw. The door creaked as she opened it, revealing a narrow path leading deep into the wilderness. Anxiety pooled in her stomach as she stepped outside, feeling the cold earth beneath her feet. Each step was a pulse of dread. The haunting words of her uncle vibrated in her skull, warning her to obey. But she needed to break free from the icy grip of fear shackling her thoughts. The further she ventured down the path, the more oppressive the atmosphere grew. Gnarled branches swayed dangerously close, and she felt unseen eyes upon her. The symbols her eyes had touched inside the cabin now illustrated the trees, finishing the eerie vibe she had felt just a short while ago. The whispers began anew, drifting on the breeze, teasing her sanity, reminding her she was never truly alone. Suddenly, the path opened up to a clearing, a stark contrast to the enveloping forest. The air was still, too quiet, almost as if time itself held its breath. In the center lay a circle of stones, charred and slick, the remnants of past fires. Vengeance hung heavy in the air. This was it, the source of the horror woven through her family's history. Before she could turn back, a voice broke through the silence, sharp and guttural. "You shouldn't have come here." The words slithered through the air, cold as the grave. Sarah spun around, flashlight flickering wildly, but nothing stood behind her, just the towering darkness waiting hungrily. Terror surged through her veins as the shadows began to shift, swirling ominously. Panic roared to life. Heart pounding, she ran back toward the cabin, but doubt gnawed at her. Could she ever escape this nightmare? Each step felt heavier, as if the very ground conspired to pull her down. An icy hand wrapped around her arm. She gasped, heart leaping. She turned, expecting the worst, but found herself staring into the translucent face of a woman, her eyes hollow and dark, like echoes of doom. "You must choose," the woman whispered, and as she faded, the wind howled angrily around Sarah. Fear clawed at her throat. She was on the brink of discovering something monumental, something that could decide her fate. But what decision, and what horror waited to be unveiled? Breathless, Sarah stumbled back toward the cabin, her mind racing. What more terrible truths lay in wait for her? A sudden growl echoed from the forest, sending a jolt of ice down her spine. Something dark was coming, something that would force her to confront more than just her fears. What had she awakened? The cabin loomed closer, a silent witness to her mounting dread. Sarah's breath quickened, each ragged inhalation mixing with the cold night air, tasting metallic fear as it filled her lungs. She could still feel the chill of the otherworldly hand that had gripped her arm. It wasn't over. Whatever haunted this place wanted her as she crossed the threshold. The cabin felt different, like it was aware of her return. The shadows inside were deeper, more alive. The weight of the air pressed down on her, and the whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like suffocating vines. "Choose the word" echoed in her mind, jagged and relentless. What did it want her to choose? She shook her head, struggling to clear the fog of confusion swirling in her thoughts. In the far corner of the dim room, the lantern flickered, casting erratic patterns on the walls. She stepped cautiously toward it, driven by an unseen force. The light seemed to summon memories, soft chortles of laughter, the faint echo of her uncle's voice mingling with murmurings of warning. The writings on the wall whispered secrets she yearned to decipher. She glanced back toward the door, half tempted to bolt, but the need for answers rooted her in place on the walls. The carvings shifted in the flickering light. They were faces, distorted, anguished faces. Each expression told a story of torment. Had those who came before her made the same mistake, crossing the line between this world and the next? Her pulse quickened as one face, more pronounced than the others, seemed to draw her closer. Find what was taken, it begged silently, as if the air itself conjured the words. You must make amends. Amends? The thought rippled through her, growing more insistent. She felt the pressure building around her. A fan of emotions: fear, despair, anger. She couldn't ignore it. She had to confront the truth. With trembling fingers, she picked up a shard of broken mirror on the floor, glinting in the modest light. It felt cold against her skin, sending ripples of uncertainty through her. What truths could be unveiled through this window to the soul? She held it up, staring into the mismatched, fractured reflection. Suddenly, the chill of the night air gusted through the cabin, rattling the window panes. The whispers swelled to a cacophony, drowning her thoughts. Stand firm, make the choice, they urged, rising like a storm. Heart pounding, Sarah closed her eyes, trying to center herself amidst the chaos. What choice? The choice to uncover her family's secrets? Or the path of ignorance, shrouded in safety but steeped in fear? The sound of crunching leaves filtered through the walls, a harsh reminder that there were watchers beyond the cabin. Something was out there, circling like a predator ready to strike. She felt the hairs on her neck stand at attention. Her flash illuminated the corners where shadows crept, but it offered no comfort. Maybe, just maybe, the choice wasn't hers alone. She couldn't shake the feeling that something malevolent had been released the moment she stepped outside. With her gut churning, Sarah took a deep breath and spoke, her voice barely a whisper. What must I do? A bone-chilling laughter erupted from the corners, filling the room with a soul-chilling echo. It was a sound that seemed both joyful and sinister, twining around her like smoke. The shadows surged, threatening to swallow her whole. Just then, the front door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The finality of the sound rattled through her bones. She was trapped. As the cabin plunged into thick darkness, Sarah's heart raced. The walls began to shift, shimmering with shadowy forms and unspoken rage. A choice must be made, but how could she when the path was wrapped in darkness? The whir of unseen wings beat against the closed door. Whispers urged her to decide, but what would happen when she did? What were the stakes of her choice? The air around Sarah thickened, a palpable tension that gripped her like ice. Shadows swirled, expanding and contracting like a living organism, as if the cabin itself was breathing. The laughter echoed, unsettling and dissonant, surrounding her like a cage. She could no longer tell where the voices ended and her own thoughts began. She stumbled back, the glass shard clattering from her fingers, its glint swallowed by the darkness. Her heart hammered against her ribcage, each thud seeming to resonate with the whispers that mocked her fear. The words had slipped from her grasp, leaving behind a lingering dread that coiled tightly in her gut. Find what was taken, a low voice hissed from the corner, barely above a whisper yet crackling like dry leaves. Sarah's eyes darted around, but the source remained shrouded in shadow. You must choose before it chooses for you. Panic surged. What could it mean? She didn't want to be the next victim of this place. She tightened her grip on sanity, forcing herself to breathe slowly. Was this a test? Or a trap? The sounds outside grew more pronounced, branches snapping under heavy weight, leaves rustling, an unseen presence moving in the dark. Every instinct screamed for her to escape, but she sensed that the very fabric of reality was shifting. The cabin itself was alive, pulsating with a dark energy. She turned toward the wall covered in grim carvings, desperate to decipher their meaning. Visions flickered in her mind, flashes of despair and agony etched in those faces. Each one seemed to plead with her, frozen in time, caught in a cycle of suffering that she could perhaps disrupt. Then, clarity pierced through the chaotic whirlpool of emotion. Make amends, the words resonated, clearer now, cutting through the fog. She needed to know what had been lost before she could comprehend her own fate. Determination flickered to life in her chest. She wouldn't let fear govern her. What was taken? She demanded, voice steady despite the tremors in her hands. Show me. Suddenly, the air shifted again, heavy with the scent of decay. A faceless figure emerged from the wall, crafted from the very shadows that enveloped her. It drifted closer, a void that absorbed the light, each movement a ghastly dance of despair. Sarah stumbled back but held her ground. The figure spoke, its voice colder than the night air. The price of life is the truth. To find what was lost, one must be prepared to face the darkness within. As if triggered, the lantern flickered violently, revealing a hidden message scrawled beneath the carvings. Beware the price of knowledge. Her pulse quickened again as realization struck, knowing might come at a dreadful cost. But what choice did she have? She was already ensnared. The outside world faded away, and all that remained was the oppressive atmosphere of the cabin and the overwhelming need to uncover her uncle's secret. Make your choice now or lose everything. The voice snarled, piercing through her thoughts. Fingers trembling, Sarah reached out, her thoughts racing. Should she search the walls for more clues? Or dare to confront the figure? The answers were shrouded in dread, but the way forward felt like a plunge into an abyss. She stepped toward the dark entity, her resolve hardening. I will face it. Show me what I need to know. The haunting laughter erupted once more, a hostile symphony echoing in the cabin. As shadows spiraled toward her, she took the plunge, heart racing towards the void. And just like that, darkness swallowed her world whole. In this new realm, the whispers morphed into a sinister chant, echoing everywhere. She realized she was no longer just a witness. She had become part of the haunting. What horrors awaited her in the depths of the shadows? Would she discover the truth only to regret her choice? The path ahead twisted like a serpent, and there was no turning back. The stakes had never been higher. The darkness pressed in around Sarah, thick and suffocating. The whispers had transformed, their dissonant notes rising and falling like a chilling lullaby. She felt the shadows encroaching, reaching out, grasping at her with unseen hands. Every step she took was accompanied by a cold shiver running down her spine, as if the very essence of the cabin was alive and watching her, anticipating her every move. Face the darkness within. The voice rang in her ears, unyielding. But what did that mean? What darkness would she find? In the dim, flickering light of the lantern that seemed to pulse in time with her racing heart, she caught her breath, trying to center herself. Her determination flickered but wouldn't extinguish. She was here by choice, or so she told herself. With resolve, Sarah called out, "What do I need to do?" The air chilled further, growing heavier, and she could have sworn that before her, the shadows writhed and formed shapes, twisted reflections of despair. In that moment, a jagged outline slid from the void, resembling a door. It loomed before her, dark and foreboding, inviting yet forewarning. "Enter." It murmured, the word serpentine and slithering. Trembling, Sarah stepped forward. As she approached, the door creaked open, revealing an unsettling landscape beyond a nightmarescape that mirrored her deepest fears. Shadows danced frantically, forming apparitions of people she barely recognized, each embodying her insecurities, her failures. They reached out as if begging her to remember, or perhaps to conform to the terror that resonated within her. "Stop! Who are you?" she shouted, her voice trembling. They silenced her with a cacophony of distorted laughter. A part of her wanted to crumble under the weight of it all, wanted to flee, but another part somehow stronger pushed her forward. She needed to confront whatever lurked in the depths of her mind. She had to face the source of the darkness. Gritting her teeth, Sarah stepped through the doorway, no longer just a spectator, but an active participant in this twisted game. She found herself in a fog-laden realm, the air thick with whispers. "Only the truth can set you free," they echoed, taunting and tumultuous, drowning her thoughts as she walked deeper. Images surged around her memories, regrets, moments of vulnerability. She saw her younger self, trembling in front of judgmental peers, the seconds stretching into eternity as their smirks twisted into monstrous forms. A stinging pain shot through her chest as the memory morphed, turning into the face of her uncle, his expression a mask of disappointment. "Why do you come back?" He seemed to ask without words, the shadows distorting his voice. "You're not ready, none of us are ready, stop," she screamed, grasping her head as if that could block them out. She closed her eyes, focusing on a flicker of defense. "I didn't come to be haunted. I came to uncover the truth." At that moment, the shadows swirled violently around her, and the faces merged into a mirror that reflected her most dreaded fears: failure, abandonment, and darkness. She stumbled back, panting, her pulse racing, but just as despair threatened to consume her, a glimmer caught her attention. Hidden in the depths of the shadows was a small, glowing object, a key, shimmering with a foreign light. It seemed to pulse softly, inviting her closer. Was this the answer? The thing that could lead her back to reality? Tentatively, Sarah reached out her hand, a mix of dread and hope flooding her senses. But the shadows wouldn't let her go so easily. Tendrils of darkness shot out, searching for her, intent on keeping her bound in this nightmarish realm. "Choose wisely or lose it all," the voice whispered, echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. She fought against the encroaching darkness, heart pounding, determination surging. Would she grasp the key and risk everything, or would she be swallowed whole? As the darkness constricted around her, her heart thudded with panic. What lay ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. She had to make her choice, or be lost forever. Would she dare to fight against the shadows and seize the light? Or would she succumb to the despair, unable to escape her uncle's legacy? The key hovered, glowing with a faint, otherworldly brightness that seemed to beckon Sarah closer. Yet, the shadows twisted and whipped around her limbs, their grasp icy and suffocating. She could feel her heart hammering against her ribs, a wild drum urging her to act, to fight, to grip the key. "Don't touch it." The voices from the past rose crescendo, clawing at her sanity. It was a warning burrowed in memories she didn't want to revisit. Yet, here they were, alive in this void, casting dreadful light on her deepest regrets. "Why am I here?" she gasped, desperate for clarity. "What do you want from me?" "Everything," they hissed in unison, their grotesque laughter echoing like nails on a chalkboard. "Everything and nothing." Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, tendrils slashing through the air, closing the distance. Panic hit her like a tidal wave. Sarah yanked her hand back, no longer certain if the key was her salvation or her ultimate doom. Could she trust it? Could she trust herself? In that instant of hesitation, the shadows lunged. Sharp claws of darkness latched onto her wrist, dragging her down into the depths of despair. She gasped, fighting, twisting her body, agony coursing through her. The laughter grew louder, a grotesque choir of torment reminding her of every time she had been weak, every time she had doubted herself. "Face your demons, Sarah," the echoes urged, sharper now. "Face what you fear most." With her pulse thundering in her ears, the images around her shifted once more. The faces morphed into her childhood bullies, smirking, their laughter cutting deep. Each cruel taunt slashed at her self-worth. "You'll never be enough. You were born a failure." "No," she cried, grappling against the darkness. "I am more than this." But the shadows thickened, choking her voice, their intent palpable. She was being dragged toward a dark abyss, one she had tried to outrun her entire life. Flashes of her uncle filled the air, his disappointed shake of the head, his haunted stare that left her feeling unworthy. "You can't change the past," he seemed to whisper, encased in the shadows. "You'll never escape what you're destined to be." The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Her uncle's spirit was interwoven with these shadows, feeding off her fears, relishing the torment. This cabin was a trap, an unrelenting reminder of her worthlessness, drawing her deeper into a pit of despair. In a moment of pure instinct, Sarah snapped her gaze to the key, glimmering defiantly amid the chaos. "You're right," she shouted, and the words echoed oddly calm in the pandemonium. "I can't change the past, but I can change my future." She lunged forward, grasping the key tightly, feeling its warmth seep into her skin, pulse with her heartbeat. The moment her grasp tightened around it, a shock wave rippled through the shadows, freezing them in place. Silence enveloped her, and for a moment, everything came to a standstill. Then, without warning, a blinding light burst forth from the key, illuminating the fog-laden world around her. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the light, their forms sputtering and fizzling as they fought the brilliance that threatened to consume them. As the light grew brighter, the laughter of her tormentors faded, leaving only the echo of her own breathing. It was exhilarating, yet precarious. Was she truly free? Or was this merely an illusion, the calm before another storm? Just as a new reality began to piece itself together, the ground trembled beneath her, and she realized her battle was far from over. The darkness reared back, shrieking in fury, shadows coiling like snakes, preparing to strike. Face the darkness, or let it face you. The voice roared, lingering in the air. A promise and a threat, leaving her standing on the threshold of a new challenge. Would the light protect her? Or would the depths of despair swallow her whole once more? The light exploded around Sarah, filling her vision and washing over the oppressive darkness. But the glow was accompanied by a deep rumble, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart at the seams. Shadows writhed, twisting themselves into unnatural shapes, and the cacophony of tortured voices returned, louder than ever. Sarah squeezed the key, feeling its heat pulse through her palm. This was hers to wield, but it also felt like a tether, binding her to this nightmare. No, I want to go back. She screamed into the chaos, struggling against the tendrils of despair that reached for her once more. Instead of retreating, the shadows loomed forward, their laughter mingling with shrieks of rage. You think you can escape? The mocking tone sent shivers down her spine. You are ours, Sarah. Always have been, always will be. The ground beneath her trembled, cracking open like an old wound. Dark earth oozed like blood, and all around her, figures began to emerge from the fissures' faces she recognized from her past, long buried in the shadows of her memories. Sarah, they whispered her name, seductive and sinister. It was her uncle's voice that sent a chill coursing through her. You don't belong here. You are weak, just like I always said. Shut up, she shouted, gripping the key tighter. You're wrong. I'm not weak. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. The instant those words escaped her lips, a surge of light erupted from the key, piercing through the shadows that closed in on her. The figures staggered back, momentarily confused. Boosted by the key's newfound power, Sarah pressed forward, hoping to turn the tide. But the shadows regrouped, swirling and morphing into a demonic visage of her uncle, a cruel caricature etched with disappointment. You will always be trapped, my dear. You cannot escape your family. You're not worthy of the light. With her heart racing, Sarah shook her head, forcing the memories away. I will not be defined by you. At that moment, the key resonated, vibrating violently in her grip. The chamber's walls shifted and cracked, the colors swirling into a kaleidoscope of nightmarish beauty. The forces of light and dark were clashing inside her, battling for dominance. She could feel the power shifting, yet fear lingered at the edges. Everything is a choice, she whispered, letting the words spin like a chant. I choose to fight. I choose to live. As she spoke, glimmers of radiant energy bubbled forth, illuminating faces from her past. Not just the sinister ones, but also the friends she had lost along the way. They surrounded her, faces full of encouragement and love, shining brighter than any darkness. But the shadows weren't done. They recoiled, regrouping with a vengeance, their anger palpable. You think support can save you? They screeched, voices twisting into a symphony of wrath. They lunged again, claws scraping at her skin, seeking to claim her once more. Leave her be, one of the figures yelled, stepping forward from the light, a memory that solidified into a solid figure. It was a childhood friend, one whose laughter had once filled her days with joy. You're stronger than this. Fight with us. Empowered by their presences, Sarah felt her heart expand. The shadows faltered for just a moment, hesitating. But it was just enough. She raised the key high, directing the light with all her strength, bloody and raw. The light exploded in a blinding flash, overwhelming the twisted forms. The darkness shattered like glass, fragments scattering into the void, but as the shards of despair whirled past her, Sarah could still hear their taunts, echoing faintly. You can't escape what's inside you will return. Suddenly, a void yawned open at her feet, absorbing what was left of the shadows. She gasped, realizing she was teetering at the precipice of a new unknown. Yet, in that instant, an icy dread slithered through her chest. Was this truly victory? Or was she merely falling into another layer of her fears? Taking one last breath, she closed her eyes against the chaos, hoping for strength. Would she be able to navigate this new darkness? The key still glimmered in her palm, but how long could it protect her from the shadows still lurking in the unknown? The moment Sarah felt the void engulf her, a sensation of weightlessness settled over her. It was eerily calm, a deceptive lull before chaos resumed. The light from the key flickered, casting long shadows against an infinite darkness that felt like a vast emptiness swallowing her whole. She opened her eyes, panic clawing at her throat. The surroundings were different now. The swirling darkness solidified into a dimly lit room, walls lined with strange, pulsating shapes that seemed to breathe. A faint flicker illuminated the corners, revealing silhouettes of forgotten memories, objects from happier times that now twisted grotesquely, familiar yet alien. Panic turned to dread when she noticed the whispers creeping back, slick, oily notes that slithered through the air. Sarah, come play. Her uncle's voice invaded her mind again, full of mockery. You thought you could leave? You belong to the dark, child. This is all you've ever known. Stop, she shouted, clutching the key tighter. You're not real. You're just a shadow. The room shifted around her, and with it came images, visions of moments she'd rather forget. Arguments, moments of betrayal, eyes filled with disappointment. Each one pushed against her, suffocating her will. She stumbled back, the key's light flickering. This is just a part of me, she murmured, drawing strength. I won't let you control me. As if responding to her defiance, the darkness thickened. A shadow loomed larger, morphing from something indistinct into a towering figure, a chaotic amalgamation of her fears. It reached out, a mass of terrible claws, hovering just above her. Do you see the truth, Sarah? All your friends' ghosts in the light. They can't help you. They were too weak to stay. The room trembled with laughter, but Sarah felt a spark within her. The key pulsed with heat, and she opened her mouth to scream. I am stronger because of them. With a defiant roar, she swung the key. The golden light erupted once more, carving through the darkness, igniting the room in a fantastical blaze. Memories caught in the shadows began to break apart, dissolving into the bright glow, shattering the looming figure into 1,000 shards. Each piece erupted into screams before evaporating into nothingness. But as the darkness fell away, something terrible happened. The vibrations beneath her feet shifted again, warping the reality she thought she'd just cast away. The ground cracked, a chasm opening just below her. She felt herself being pulled, sheer terror igniting her core. No, not again. Falling, she tumbled into cold despair, arms flailing. But the key in her hand burned hotter than ever, igniting a trail of brilliant light. Trust it, came a chorus of voices from a distant realm. They echoed around her, a comforting embrace amongst the fear. But the shadows were not finished. Dark tendrils erupted from the chasm, reaching out with angry claws, determined to drag her down once and for all. You'll never escape your own darkness. The last sensation she felt before the edge consumed her was the cold whisper of the void threatening to pull her in. You're alone, Sarah. You will always be alone in that terrifying moment. The key flared one final time, exploding with blinding energy. Then all went black. When she regained her senses, Sarah found herself in a silent, white room, no shadows to be seen. Confusion washed over her, coupled with relief. Was this the end of her battle? But then the whispers returned. A different voice this time, familiar yet chilling. Welcome back. You thought you could outrun your nightmares. But they're just getting started. She rose to her feet, heart pounding. What lay ahead? One thing was clear: darkness was waiting, and she would need to confront it again. The silence was unnerving. Sarah blinked against the white haze, a void stripped of darkness but heavy with tension. Her breaths came shallow, echoing off blank walls that seemed to absorb sound. Where was she? A sanctuary from nightmares, or another trap cunningly disguised? "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling as it dissipated in the sterile room. There was no reply, only the insidious whisper creeping back into her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like smoke. "Sarah? You thought you won." A cold shiver ran down her spine. The realization hit her. This wasn't an escape. It was a facade, a deceptive lull. She gulped, the taste of dread thickening in her throat. The key in her hand pulsed, a tiny flame against the overwhelming white that suffocated her. Suddenly, shadows clawed at the corners of her vision, shapes forming from the emptiness that had thwarted her before. Her uncle's laughter echoed, sinister and mocking. "Did you really think you could break free?" As if in response to his taunt, she felt the key grow warmer, its glow illuminating the walls. Now, instead of dark memories, grotesque images swirled around her. Memories twisted to incite terror. "Your friends didn't save you," the voice continued, pulling at the threads of her sanity. "They abandoned you, Sarah. Alone, always alone." "No," she cried, gripping the key tighter. She couldn't let it win. Her heart raced. The key shone brighter, offering a connection to her memories, good and bad alike. This was not merely a weapon. It was a bridge to her true self. The walls shuddered as if the very structure of this place couldn't withstand her resolve. Vibrations surged under her feet, bending reality once again. The white room flickered, revealing flashes of terrifying truths. Each flash revealed a moment of pain, each one more vivid than the last. A shattered friendship, her mother's tears, her father's wrath. But buried within the agony was something else: resilience. The brighter the key shone, the darker the memories pulsed. "I can't go back to that," she screamed, and the light erupted, filling the room. The layers of twisted memories began to peel away, replaced by radiant memories of laughter, love, and strength. But the sinister voice morphed its tone, now dripping with venomous glee. "You think love can shield you? Love doesn't protect from the darkness. It exposes it." Then, as if in rebuttal, a monstrous shadow formed ahead, coalescing from the memories she shattered. This time it was not just her fears but her regrets taking shape, a grotesque chimera of everything she wished she could erase. The key flickered, struggling against the darkness that howled at her. "No," Sarah shouted. "I am stronger than my past." With a surge of frantic energy, she thrust the key forward, its brilliance erupting, cutting through the dimness. The shadow shrieked, twisting and contorting, trying to retract, but the light was relentless. Each cry allowed a release, a catharsis. Cracks began to spread across the shadow until it shattered with a thunderous roar, echoing through the void. But the victory felt short-lived. The ground beneath her trembled violently, fissures opening like angry mouths preparing to swallow her whole. In the chaos, Sarah's heart sank. "Where are you taking me now?" The whispers persisted, now an angry swarm, vibrant with fury. "This isn't over, Sarah. There's more to unearth." Before she could grasp the magnitude of their threat, the light flickered and faded. The room around her dissolved once again. Spiraling into oblivion, she plummeted into chaos. Realization struck anew. She wouldn't just be fighting shadows. She would face forgotten truths, things even she had buried deep down. And somewhere in that suffocating void, a chilling voice emerged, softer now, almost a soothing caress. "Welcome to the real nightmare, Sarah." Her final scream echoed as everything went black once again, leaving an abyss filled with questions. Who had returned to claim her? And what else lay waiting in the depths? The darkness began to unfurl, revealing the heavy struggle before her. Sarah felt like she was surfacing, pulling from the depths of a suffocating sea. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder that she was still alive, still here. The shadows whispered threats but began to fade, like the last embers of a fire dwindling away. Choose, Sarah, echoed the voice that suffocated her spirit. But this time Sarah stood firm. She had faced fear, rage, and grief. Each moment of despair fueled her defiance. With her eyes open, she surveyed the barren landscape around her. It was neither a cabin nor a bright white room. Shadows danced at the edges, whispering and beckoning. But Sarah felt a pulse of light still emanating from the key in her grasp. The glow shimmered alive, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. This key wasn't just a mere object. It was a symbol of her choices, of resilience. What must I face now? She whispered, feeling her voice echo around her, sprawling into the abyss. Suddenly, faces emerged from the shadows, each one a representation of the pain she had endured, each one a story in her life. Her childhood friends, all etched with sorrow, their eyes glistening with lost moments. Mocking laughter crackled around her as they pointed and jeered, remnants of her insecurities. You abandoned us. One voice echoed a childhood friend she had lost touch with. You forgot to care, to remember. No, Sarah shouted, shaking her head violently. I loved you. I never forgot. The shadows hissed, creeping closer, intent on pulling her back into that suffocating web of regret. But she took a step forward, a surge of defiance swelling within her. I won't be defined by my past. I won't let you suffocate me with guilt. The key flared with her words, radiating warmth and light. The memories twisted, morphing into colorful ties that were once built upon love and laughter. Echoes of moments shared, happiness, joy, the beauty of friendship. The shadows writhed in anger as Sarah began to embrace these memories, allowing them to ignite a fierce resolve within her. Every face that manifested taught her a lesson. Some bore wounds that reminded her that love isn't always smooth or easy. Others shimmered with forgiveness, urging her to step forward, to break free. No longer would she let bitterness hold her in chains. I choose to honor you. All of you, she cried, voice unfaltering. You forced me to look back, to see my strength emerge from grief. I will carry you, not as a burden but as a light illuminating my path forward. The response was immediate. The shadows, torn between the light she emanated and the fear that bound them, shrieked and twisted, attempting to retreat. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, but she held her ground. With a swift movement, she thrust the key forward, unleashing a massive glow that pierced through the thickest shadows, dissolving them in brilliant bursts. Illustrative beams carved out the faces around her. Sadness turned to peace, resentments faded into understanding. Each truth she faced became part of her armor, shaping not her failures but her triumphs. She felt free, liberated from the grasp of the echoes that haunted her as the shadows dissolved and the last of the dark figures evaporated into glowing tendrils. She found herself standing on solid ground, a beautiful, calming meadow bathed in sunlight, warm and golden. What now? She murmured, exhausted but filled with a newfound courage. You move onward, a voice chimed. It was her own, the voice of strength she had built within her. You've come to understand that every step you take forward is a testament to your journey, and every choice you make builds your future. You are not bound by the past, but you are made stronger by it. In the vibrant meadow, full of light, she finally felt like herself again. This was not just a respite. It was the beginning of her new life. There would be challenges ahead, but they welcomed her with open arms as she turned to leave the meadow. Her heart felt light. No more shadows clung to her. No chains held her captive. Sarah took a deep breath, the scent of freedom invigorating her senses. And in her heart, she knew she would always carry those memories, both painful and beautiful, transforming them into strength. After all, facing darkness only allowed light to shine brighter. Now, if you want to join Sarah on her next adventure and discover more exclusive stories, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, because it truly makes all the difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I'm absolutely dying to read what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Your support means everything, and only true fans understand the importance of joining this community.